The moon is not a planet.
What else is it if it's not a planet?
It is not. I believe it's a star.
NASA is looking for companies to mine the moon for resources.
Let's pass a bill to cover the moon with yogurt that will cost $5 trillion today.
The moon. It's not just something that sometimes turns your friends into werewolves. It's also rich in rare minerals and elements, meaning humankind will have somewhere to plunder long after we've burned through all of the resources here on Earth. But before you become a prospector in the lunar gold rush, you might want to consider how uncomfortable it would be to have a prospector's beard in a space helmet. You might also want to consider who owns the plot of moonland you're hacking up with your pickaxe in the first place.
I went out and bought me some land on the moon. You never know.
I got a deed for a piece of the moon.
This lunar deed is fucking amazing.
Millions of people already have certificates saying they own a plot of land on Earth's lone satellite, and you can get one too. All you have to do is log onto a website like lunanembassy.com and, for as little as $25, an acre of La Luna is yours. Or at least you'll get a piece of paper in the mail that says it's yours. And as we all know, pieces of paper do not lie. On lunanembassy.com, buying 2 acres qualifies you for free shipping, which if you don't like the idea of paying for shipping on the deed for your moon plot, you're going to be furious when you hear how much it's going to cost you to visit it. Just like on Earth, real estate on the moon is all about location, location, location. You don't want your land to be in some undeveloped backwoods area like the Hadley Delta region or the Descartes Highlands. You want to be where the action is, among the hustle and bustle of the Sea of Tranquility. I'm told it's really on the up. Also, just like on Earth, it pays to shop around. There are plenty of competing websites promising to get you the best deal on Moonland. While lunanembassy.com is selling an acre near Tranquility Base for $45, lunarregistry.com has them going for $40, and lunarland.com is offering a deluxe product. For $70, your certificate will be framed, because it's totally normal behavior for people to frame and hang any deeds to land they may own. Lunar land sellers all argue that customers would be crazy to spend their hard-earned money anywhere else. But all these companies have one thing in common. There's no evidence the deeds they're selling are valid legal documents. In 1967, while the US and the Soviet Union were multitasking a Cold War and a space race, the United Nations decided we needed a treaty to stop them from putting their nuclear weapons in space, which would have been an extreme example of what's known as conflict escalation. And in hindsight, it was probably a good idea.
We're just now learning about a crazy Cold War era plan to blow up the moon with a nuclear weapon to impress the Russians.
The treaty the UN created has a name that's long enough to be a Sufjan Stevens song title. The Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies. But most people call it the Outer Space Treaty. It's an agreement between more than 100 nations that says that no country can claim any part of celestial bodies, including the Moon, Mars, Pluto, and before you ask, yes, even Comet C/2006 P1. So when Neil Armstrong claimed a giant leap for mankind before stabbing the American flag into the moon, or soundstage if you're someone who did their own research, he wasn't claiming ownership. He was just committing one of humanity's worst examples of mixed messaging. The Outer Space Treaty even goes so far as to promise free access to all areas of celestial bodies. It doesn't matter if your country landed on the moon first or if it landed on it never. The international community's view is that nobody owns the moon, because everybody does. The treaty may have prohibited nations from claiming ownership of celestial bodies, but Dennis Hope, the founder of Lunar Embassy, noticed that those chumps at the UN never said anything about individuals.
So because of a semantics loophole, you jumped in, and what did you do? You sent letters to all these people and said, I own the moon?
Yes. In 1980, Hope wrote a letter to the UN claiming the entire lunar surface for himself. A literal moonshot. The UN never replied, which Hope took to mean they were cool with it, which isn't how permission works. Hope claims that his galactic government court has sued the owner of another lunar land seller and won, which is not how courts or the law work. And Hope claims the galactic government he created has had its sovereignty recognized by the US government, seemingly because then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's signature appears on the cover page of his copyright filing, which isn't how a number of things work. Considering the total surface area of the moon and that Hope valued each acre at about $25, his personal net worth would be around $250 billion.
I'm actually the wealthiest individual on the planet, in theory.
Hope wasn't the first person to prove that when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, you should claim it as your own. In 1954, a Chilean man named Genaro Gajardo Vera was trying to join a local social club that required its members to own property. As the story goes, Vera got a notarized deed saying he owned the entire moon, and was granted membership, making Vera a trailblazer in the field of overcompensating. But even Vera's claim is predated by one from Germany. Martin Jürgens claimed the moon was gifted to his ancestors by Prussian King Frederick the Great way back in 1756. Because even in the 18th century, people struggled with last-minute gifts and improvised based on what they were looking at that very moment. If you want to give a moon-related gift that actually has value, consider gifting some helium-3. It's been valued at about $40,000 per ounce, and the moon is apparently full of it. The isotope is seen as an ideal fuel for nuclear fusion, in part because the reaction wouldn't create any radioactive byproducts, which is good news for when we finally build fusion reactors here on Earth and we all have to live next to them. Some private space companies are already planning to mine the moon for helium-3 and other valuable elements, including rare earth metals and water. If you thought bottled water was already expensive, just wait until Pepsi is trying to sell us moon water. Aqua Lunar. It's one giant leap for how much we can charge you for bottled water. The moon seems like a real schlep just to get some water, but in theory that moon water, which comes in the form of tiny ice grains, could be split into hydrogen and oxygen and then turned into rocket fuel. This would allow space shuttles to use the moon as a launch pad to farther destinations like Mars, making it a kind of cosmic gas station where you can rest and use the bathroom, but only after paying for some food you didn't even want.
Chocolate pudding cake.
The UN has also tried to address the moon's resources in, you guessed it, another treaty. That, you guessed it again, sounds like another Sufjan Stevens song. The agreement governing the activities of states on the moon and other celestial bodies. The Moon Treaty, as it's more commonly known, says that the potentially trillions of dollars worth of natural resources are owned by all of humanity. Any profits from mining or bougie water should be shared, especially with developing countries that lack the resources to mine the moon for themselves. Curiously, all of the nations that actually have the ability to travel to the moon and exploit its resources, like China, Russia, and the US, haven't signed the Treaty of Intergalactic Sharing. In fact, the US has moved in the exact opposite direction. In 2015, it passed the Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, a fancy way of saying that Americans and American companies are entitled to keep whatever resources they manage to extract from space. And the Trump administration has doubled down on the idea of celestial finders, celestial keepers, issuing an executive order that encouraged companies to mine and keep space resources.
In this heavy-duty safe at Houston's Johnson Space Center, NASA guards what astronauts brought back from the Apollo lunar landings, a treasure trove of moon rocks.
If you do get to the moon, make sure to snag a few rocks. They would make for great souvenirs, paperweights that you constantly have to explain to your friends that no, they're not regular rocks. Or better yet, NASA says it will pay between $15,000 and $25,000 for the samples. It's not much, considering how much it probably cost you to get to the moon, but it would be the beginning of a marketplace for buying and selling things extracted from rocks beyond Earth. China is promoting its own private space launch and mining companies with its new China Commercial Space Alliance, and Russia has been in talks with Luxembourg to team up and mine the galaxy. Though all these claims have to be taken with grains of salt. 15 years ago, Russia's biggest space contractor claimed it would have a mine on the moon and would be mining helium-3 by 2020, though I guess they still have a couple months. Private space companies aren't just hoping to get to the moon to make a fortune off resources. Companies like SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and Blue Origin are also hoping to turn space into a tourist destination for wealthy people who feel like owning their own island on Earth is a little close to other humans.
I choose to go to the moon. I choose to go to the moon with artists.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, the moon has become overrun with tourism and industry. It's no longer the idyllic getaway from my childhood. Today, I'm all about Jupiter. I cannot wait to take my family and settle on the gas giant, where I'm told we'll be crushed by liquid hydrogen upon our arrival. I've already got my deed.